Hi, my name is Pablo Zabaleta and I welcome you to this video where we will be covering Chapter 10, Human Resources and Work Design of the Heizer and Render book. As always, let's start first with our outline. In this case, the outline for this chapter covers a huge amount of material. So, without further ado, let's start. What are the applicable restrictions when we talk about the design for, or how to calculate, how to plan for the workforce? Well, we need to know something that we have already seen in previous videos. That is to say, product strategy. We need to know about the process strategy. We need to know about the plans, the individual differences, the location strategy, and the organizational strategy. But in all cases, remember that always praxis rules over theory. Each place, each country, each city has its own characteristics, and you must adapt to the reality in which you operate. Otherwise, you're bound to fail. Always remember, praxis rules over theory. Regarding the workforce planning, yes, we can use, for example, certain employment stability policies in our company. We can strictly meet demand, and thereby our workforce will be variable, and we tend to consider when we're developing our financial statements that labor costs are variable, or sometimes we prefer to keep our employment constant, where we tend to regard the labor costs as fixed. Why? Because we don't want to lose certain people who are highly trained, who are productive. So we'd rather keep them stable, and in that case our costs are fixed. Also, we can have working days that are either fixed, let's say Monday through Friday, 8 to 4 or 9 to 5, whatever. We can have it variable or flexible, especially in the case of people who are hired for hours, and we can have also intensive. One case that I recall about intensive is when you go to work on an oil platform at sea. So you go up into the platform for 3 weeks and then you come down for another 3 weeks. But also, we must recall the job classification and work rules that are applicable to each and any profession that we're working with. For example, depending on the type of work, in the case of health industry, doctors, nurses, whatever, they can only work 6 hours at a time. Why? Because they are working in an unhealthy environment, full of ill people. In the case of pilots, for example, airline pilots, they can only have 6 landings in one day. The stress that each landing brings to a pilot accumulates, and by the end of the sixth landing, the norm is to get them out of the production line. Now, the book says that personal integration is it consists of occupying and thus maintaining the positions in the organizational hierarchy. Okay, I don't like that definition, to tell you the truth. Why? Because it's not a question of filling a space. It's a question of having the resources that are needed to carry out the job. If we recall, what is the definition of personal management? It's to have the right human resources at the place and time that requires them. Yes, but compare that definition with the definition of logistics. And we have the right resources at the place and time that requires them. That is to say, human resources are just a resource, and we need the correct people at the right time in the right place. Our performance as operations managers will revolve around ensuring that the right resources are there. And that's why it's impossible to separate logistics from operations. Operations and logistics, even though there's some discussion regarding that logistics is only related to moving things, not so. Logistics is the art of having the right resource at the place and time where it is required. And operations is just about doing things. We can't do it without resources. Now, how do we define the number of people that are required? Well, base it on the operations program. That is, on the basis of what we're going to do. Everything else is inefficiency. Because if you have some people and they are not going to contribute to what we need to do, that person is not in the correct place. We're paying for somebody who's not contributing to achieve a result. And that is an inefficiency. What is the fundamental role of the administrator in general? And the operations manager is an administrator at its essence. It's to make the most efficient use of the resources that are entrusted to you. Our lesson will continue in the next video.